time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the San Diego Padres. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Wednesday evening to you, wherever you may be. Welcome to Dodger Stadium and Game 2 of the three-game series with San Diego. The Dodgers hold the edge. They've beaten San Diego 8 of 11, 6 of the last 8, and San Diego 11.5 games behind the Dodgers in the National League West. The pitching for tonight, Roberto Hernandez, the new Dodger, will make his debut at Dodger Stadium. This will be his third start. He had a no decision against Milwaukee, and he defeated the Atlanta Braves. When he was with Philadelphia, he was 6-8. On the mound for San Diego, the left-hander Eric Stultz. For Stultz, he is 5-13. It's been a tough year. 0-1 against the Dodgers, 1-4 lifetime. Looking at the Dodgers, if you've been following them, you know they're only one game above 500 at home and 14 games above 500 on the road. For whatever reason, that's the way they have played. Well, when you look at their challenges against left-handers, they are 7-7 against left-hand starters at home, and on the road they are 13-3. As they said in The King and I, it is a puzzlement. We'll be back with the ball game and a whole lot more right after this.
Set between National League West rivals, the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers, as fans make their way into Dodger Stadium on a perfect Wednesday evening. Hello, everybody, and welcome inside Dodger Stadium. I'm Alana Rizzo. Justin Turner getting the start once again at third base for the ailing Juan Uribe, who is on the disabled list once again with a right hamstring issue. But it is not just in injury situations in which Justin Turner excels for the Los Angeles Dodgers this season. In fact, he may be one of the most unsung MVP keys for the Dodgers this year, and here is why. A true clutch performer, a 308 average, a career high for him. A change of scenery has done him good. 3 home runs, driven in 27, but the real key number is the 383 average with runners in scoring position, the epitome of clutch. He's driven in 21 ribbies with runners in scoring position, the second highest in Major League Baseball. Justin Turner getting the start at third base again. But really the big news here at Dodger Stadium today, Zack Greinke, who was scheduled to start tomorrow in Game 3, will not make his scheduled start. Instead, it is going to be Clayton Kershaw on the hill. Zack Greinke, dealing with right elbow soreness, will get 2 extra days of rest. He will make the start against the Mets on Saturday. Coming up after the break, Vince Scully on the call. Stay with us.
Wherever you may be, welcome to Dodger Stadium, Game 2 of the 3-game series, the Dodgers and the Padres. Dodgers have done pretty well against the Padres. They've beaten them 6 out of 7 and 8 out of 11 for the year, with another series or 2 left to go before they're finished. The Dodgers will go on the road and go to Arizona for 2. They'll be in San Diego for 3. And the 8th of September, the Padres will come back for 3 more. So after this series, still 6 more with San Diego. Bud Black, whose ball club rallied last night, came close, went down to defeat 8-6. They have a little 2-game losing streak, but don't take the Padres for granted. One reason, since the All-Star break, the Padres have won 17 and lost 12. They have a lot of young ball players ready to make a move, and let's take a look at their lineup, which they featured last night. Yangervis Solarte will be at third base, Abraham Almonte in center field, and Seth Smith in left. Jed Jerko hit that 3-run home run last night, hitting over 300 since he came off the DL. Yasmani Grandal behind the plate. Jake Gobert is at first base, Reimer Liriano in right field, Alexi Amarista at short, and the left-hand Eric Stultz on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Roberto Hernandez. But when he first came up to the big leagues, he came up under an assumed name, Faustus Carmona, and played that way until finally it was discovered his true name is Roberto Hernandez. With Carmona, he was 3.5 years younger, so actually as he takes the mound, He'll be celebrating his 34th birthday on the 30th of this month. He's a big fella. Roberto is 6'4", 230 pounds. The best year in his career, he was with Cleveland in 2007, and he won 19 games. He also won 13 for the Indians, and here he is now making his third start for the Dodgers. He had a no decision against Milwaukee. He beat Atlanta, and now he's checking in. Jan Hervis, the YAN has like a W in it, and the G becomes an H. So a lot of times when we're rushed, we'll just call him Jan Solarte. Anything but yawning. Bright young player. Had a couple of base hits last night. Solarte, a switch hitter, batting left-handed, and takes low. Ball 1, 1-0. Solarte from Valencia in Venezuela. If you remember the outfielder Roger Cedeno, that's his uncle. Hard ground ball right at Gonzalez. Adrian takes it to the bag. So a sharp hopper to first, and we have one away with Abraham Almonte coming up. Here are the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Barney, Aravena and Turner, Van Slyke, Puig and Kemp, and Ellis behind the plate. With Darwin Barney giving D. Gordon a rest at second base, it should also be noticed Darwin Barney in the past is 6 for 12 against Eric Stultz. More about that when the Dodgers are hitting. And here's Abraham Almonte, who had a big night last night, but it ended up on a sour note. He had 4 hits last night, scored a run. He had a double, 3 singles. However, he rounded third last night. The throw from Puig was cut off by Adrian Gonzalez, and they nailed him on a head-first slide back to the bag. It was very close, if you remember. Bill Miller called him out after the strong throw by Puig to Gonzalez, and they had to have an official review before the game was finally over. The 2-0 pitch on the way to Almonte is swung on and skied to shallow center. Infielders start to go back, but Puig is there and puts it away. And we have 2 down here in the first inning. And the batter will be Seth Smith. Seth Smith is the big gun in the lineup, and he's a veteran out of Mississippi. He was the backup quarterback for young Eli Manning for 3 years and never had a snap, which means he is quite patient. Hitting .296, and he leads the club in doubles, triples, and home runs. 12 home runs, 40 RBIs. Smith, left-hand batter, and Roberto ready to go to work. So Hernandez turns on the rubber, comes to the plate, and gets a strike, and the count 0-1. Veteran pitchers rarely make a change, but Hernandez made a change as far as his position on the rubber. Strike 1 pitch, and that one's in there. Strike 2. Hernandez normally pitched from the third base side of the rubber, and a couple of years ago he decided to go from the first base side, and he felt that he had more room to throw either side of the plate. Strike 2 pitch is just inside. Boy, that was close. 1-2 the count. With Hernandez, fastball, power curveball, a change, a slider. Changeup is really a challenging pitch, especially coming from someone that big. Hernandez rocks, and as he's ready, Seth Smith is not, and Seth backs out. Roberto Hernandez from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. The next pitch low in the dirt, blocked nicely. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Seth Smith. Last night, Seth struck out twice, walked, singled, and flied to left. Jed Jerko hit a 3-run home run. He's out on deck. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way, taken inside, ball 3. Smith in and out of the box. 2 down, first inning just starting. No score. Hernandez back up on top on the first base side of the rubber, and the 3-2 pitch on the way. Check swing. They're going to check. No swing. Oh, wait a minute. That gesture with the right hand, I thought they were pointing towards the umpire, and instead Mike Everett was calling him out. So Seth Smith talking to Mike Everett, and Bud Black is coming out, not so much to argue, but it's to save his left fielder. So, one way or another, the Padres go down 1-2-3. And at the end of half an inning, Padres nothing, Dodgers coming up. And we can take a look at the lineup. Don Mattingly's names as follows: Darwin Barney at second, Yasiel Puig in center, Adrian Gonzalez at first. Then you have Matt Kemp in right, Scott Van Slyke in left, Justin Turner at third, Arisbel Arubarana at short, A.J. Ellis, and Roberto Hernandez. I'll tell you one thing for Eric Stoltz, a veteran pitcher, 5-13. This lineup that he is facing tonight, those men in the lineup have given him the toughest time you can imagine. For instance, you take Darwin Barney, who takes a strike and the count 0-1. Barney is hitting .500 against Stoltz, 6-for-12. 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's taken in there. 0-2 to count. Yasiel Puig on deck is hitting .625 against Stoltz. Van Slyke is hitting .600. Turner .444 and Kemp .417. The next pitch misses and a 1-2 count. So if that's not the toughest lineup Stoltz has faced, I would be shocked to find another tougher. The 1-2 pitch on the way hits him, I believe, on the knee or thigh. Yep. And Barney is awarded first base, hit by the pitch. So the Dodgers immediately get a base runner. Barney tried to turn that right leg, and it got him just above the knee, which is a lot better than getting it on the knee. So Barwin goes to first, and now here comes Yasiel Puig. Puig is 5-for-8 against Stoltz. That's a .625 batting average. He's hitting .312, 13 home runs, 59 runs batted in. However, as we said in our opening commentary, the Dodgers are so difficult to figure out. They're break even thereabouts, maybe one game above at home. Pitch to Puig outside. However, they put up big numbers, 14 games above .500 on the road. So when you look at their record against left-hand starters, they're 7-7 at home and 13-3 on the road against left-handers. By the way, Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke sitting shoulder to shoulder, and we have news on Greinke. He's got a tender elbow, and so Clayton Kershaw will pitch tomorrow night, and Greinke will pitch Saturday. That'll rest the irritated elbow, and the Dodgers hope that's all there is, a slight irritation. And Mattingly feels things are okay. The 1-1 pitch coming up to Yasiel Puig. Change, a line drive caught by Amarista. Throws to first in time to double up Barney. So that changeup that must look like a basketball, and Puig hit a bullet right at Amarista, And the little shortstop immediately got it over to first in time. Barney, sure that it sounded like a base hit, pays the price. So the double play, 6-3, and we have 2 down in the first inning. Adrian Gonzalez checking in. Adrian Gonzalez, one of the Dodgers with a more reasonable batting average against Stultz. Adrian is hitting .250. However, he does have 2 home runs against the left-hander. Stultz ready, and his first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. 2 down, bottom of the first, no score. A lot of runs last night, especially for a Dodger-Padre game. The strike 1 pitch on the way is fouled off, 0-2. Carl Crawford leading the pack last night, and boy, what a night he had. Crawford had a single, a walk, another single, a stolen base, and a 2-run home run. Ian Kennedy suffered the loss, and the Dodgers went on to win the game 8-6. Strike 2 pitch coming up to Gonzalez, taken low and away, ball 1. Eric Stultz, originally signed by the Dodgers back in 2002. That's the same year he had Tommy John surgery. Left-hander ready, and the 1-2 fastball is in there for strike 3 call. So down go the Dodgers, 1-2-3. The line drive turned in as a DP, and at the end of the inning, it's San Diego 0 and good one working out tonight. Back in 2005, Jose Valentin played for the Dodgers. This year, Valentin's son, Hesmuel, is traded by the Dodgers to Philadelphia for Roberto Hernandez. Tonight, Jose Valentin is the first base coach for San Diego, and Hernandez is pitching for the Dodgers. The baseball indeed a very small world, and we go to the second inning, no score. By the way, Giants leading the Cubs 8-2 in the 7th inning. Giants picked up 3 in the first inning, make it 4 in the first inning, 3 more in the third against Edwin Jackson. Jake Peavy is pitching that game. Could have 2 straight wins against the White Sox and the Cubs. Great stop at third by Turner, and the throw is too late. Jed Jerko, the second baseman, pulls one down the line that would have been an extra base hit. A remarkable diving stop by Justin Turner, and then getting up, scrambling and throwing, and Jerko just does beat it in a bang play at first base. And for Jerko, he ran very well considering the fact he's been on the DL, and look how close that is. In fact, the umpire can't see the ball inside the first baseman's mitt, but the Dodgers now are on the phone, and we'll see if there's an official review or not. Jerko is aboard. Mattingly stays where he is, so we assume that Jerko will lead off with a base hit. Again, look at the first baseman's glove, and now look at the foot. It's not quite there. The glove hides the ball, so the first base umpire, which is Adrian Johnson, really couldn't see it. And the first pitch to Yasmani Grandal misses for ball one. In looking at Roberto Hernandez, he has given up an infield single that easily could have been a double. First 15 pitches, he's usually in some trouble. He gets a strike. Hernandez, in the first 15 pitches that he makes, the opposition is hitting .333. And then he just gets looser and looser and better and better. So Jerko at first with the infield single, which really could have been a double. And the next pitch is lifted to left field. Going back on the ball is Van Slyke. Now he comes in and makes the catch. Jerko bluffs tagging up just to draw the throw. So one away with a runner at first. And the batter now will be Jake Gobert, the first baseman. Jake Gobert in last night's game 1 for 3 and then gave way to a pinch hitter, Tommy Medica, who flied out on his behalf in the 8th inning. Gobert recalled just a couple of days ago from El Paso. That's his second stint this year in the big leagues. In the 6 games since he's been called up, 6 RBIs, hitting .385. And Jake, left-hand batter, takes ball one. 1-0. Gobert acquired by the Padres from Oakland in the deal that sent the big outfielder Kyle Blanks up to Oakland. 1 ball and no strikes to Jake Gobert. Jerko over there at first base did not show any signs of being a base stealing threat last year. The next pitch, that's in for a strike. The Dodgers shift a bit. Arozarena is all alone between second and third, and they move Justin Turner over to fill up the middle. Arozarena from last night's play, a remarkable young shortstop. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hernandez backs off the rubber. One of the things they talk about Hernandez, and I'm not sure if he will do it with the Dodgers or not, that he does have some superstitions. For instance, if he has a particularly tough inning, he'll go back to the clubhouse and change his shoes. The pitch outside, ball 2. 2-1. As crazy as that sounds, that's what he has been doing throughout his career. He is also very, very particular, they tell me, about the hat that he is wearing. He also, when he wants a new ball, he doesn't want the umpires to toss the ball out to him. The 2-1 pitch outside, ball 3. Now, these were all the stories we heard about him when he was with Philadelphia and with Cleveland. But when he wants a new ball, he would prefer the umpire to roll the ball back out to the mound. So if he's not there, he's changing his shoes, he's figuring out what hat to wear, and then roll the ball to him. 3-1 the count. Jerko holds, and the pitch is high, ball 4. So Gobert draws the walk. First and second, 1 out. And the very pesky shortstop, Alexi Amarista, on deck as Reimer Liriano comes up. Liriano in last night's game 1 for 4 and scored a run. Hitting just .217, however, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. He's from Santo Domingo. So the Padres have 2 on, 1 out. Second inning, no score. So Roberto in a little bit of a jam, working on the number 7 hitter with Amarista on deck. Hernandez ready. Here he comes and misses inside, ball 1. Liriano was signed as a free agent by San Diego back in 2007. Finally came up this year. Hernandez staring in to get a sign from EJ. Jerko at second, Gobert at first. Big swing and a foul ball at the plate, and the count 1-1. Liriano got that on his foot. He's an even 6 and a well-built 220. 23 years old. Take another look. Liriano takes the big swing, and he gets stung by that foul ball for the moment. 1 ball, 1 strike. 1 out, 2 on, no score. Just really starting, second inning. Now the 1-1 pitch, and Liriano takes low, ball 2, 2-1. So Roberto Hernandez in some trouble, and Alexi Amarista waiting on deck. You have Jerko at second, Gobert at first, and Hernandez on the mound. Despite the fact that Reimer Liriano is an outfielder, he had Tommy John surgery. The right-hand hitter takes a little low, though Hernandez now building himself a big hole. 3-1 to count. Rick Honeycutt, pencil in hand, making his notes. Hernandez takes the walk away. We were talking about the first and 15 where he has troubles. 16 through 30, the opposition is hitting .282. And then after 31 pitches, then he really pitches well. At least that's the way it's been in the past. 3-1 pitch now to Reimer Liriano, and that's a strike. And the count goes 3-2. Hernandez really perspiring. It's a lovely night. Temperature 73 degrees. The big man, from warming up before the game, he has now made 25 pitches. Big pitch with 1 out. We'll check the runners. They're not going, and the pitch is low, ball 4. So Roberto Hernandez gave up the single to Jerko, which easily could have been a double. And with 1 out, he has walked Gobert, Liriano, and now he'll really be tested with Alexi Amarista. Amarista does not give you much of a strike zone, and if you get the ball into that strike zone, he is capable of handling it. Amarista is 5'7". The only player shorter than Amarista to hit a home run at Dodger Stadium was Albie Pearson, playing for the Angels when the Angels played here. Amarista 3 times has knocked in 4 runs in a game. So he's tough. Checking in right now. Hernandez delivers, and he is low, ball 1. Last night, you may remember that Kevin Correa gave up 3 runs in the first inning, and the Dodgers battled back and pulled out the game. The Dodgers are not a comeback team. In fact, they have the least number of comeback vigors in the major leagues. The 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on, hit towards the gap. Puig on the dead run, can't get it. It'll drop for a hit, and they'll go 90 feet at a time, and the Padres lead 1-0. So Amarista scores Jerko with a fly ball single into right center, and then everybody else moves up. Gobert goes to third. Liriano goes to second. Amarista is at first, and Eric Stultz will be coming up. Puig on the dead run knew he couldn't catch up to it, caught it on a hop. Jerko brought the run in. So Amarista, an RBI. That would give him 23 runs batted in. And now Eric Stultz. And if I remember correctly, he's not a bad hitter, although his numbers show that he isn't. He takes outside, ball 1. Stultz, 3 hits and has struck out a third of the time. So I guess that's the best part of him. He does make contact. So the bases remain loaded. Amarista knocks in the run. Still only 1 out, remember. Hernandez next pitch swung on and missed, and the count 1-1. So Jerko singled, could have been a double. Great stop by Justin Turner, and Jerko beat the throw. With one out, Colbert walked, then Liriano walked, and Amarista's fly ball single got the run home. So the 1-1 pitch on the way is grounded foul outside of third, and the count 1-2. Turner making a diving stop of the ball hit by Jerko. He has that so-called red badge of courage on the front part of his uniform. So you knew right away, even if you arrived late, that Justin's been in the dirt. 1-2 the count to Eric Stoltz with one out. 1-0 Padres. The next pitch very high, 91, way out of the zone, and the count 2-2. Well, he's now into a patch 31-45 where the opposition has hit only .214 against him. So he's beginning that right now. 32 pitches. 2-2 pitch on the way is a line drive into left field. Base hit. Again, they will go 90 feet at a time. And the ball kicked around twice. Van Slyke throws to the plate, and he is late. So Scott Van Slyke had the devil's own time trying to pick up the ball. When he did pick it up, he dropped it, and Colbert and Liriano scored. So Stoltz winds up with a base hit. 2 runs come in, and it's shades of last night. Padres out in front, 3-0. So first Van Slyke dropped it, tried to pick it up, and dropped it. On the second drop, Liriano was able to beat the throw. So it'll be a base hit for Stoltz. 1 run batted in, and the second run scores on the error charge to Van Slyke. And Rick Honeycutt going out to talk to Roberto Hernandez. For Van Slyke, of course, it's typical of an outfielder. On a base hit, bases loaded, he's thinking, I'll come up with the ball, make sure only 1 run scores, and he's in such a hurry to pick it up that he can't do it. So Gobert has scored on the base hit by Amarista, and the parade continues. 3 runs, 3 hits for San Diego. Eric Stoltz at first, Amarista at second. So now Solarte, the third baseman, who grounded out sharply to Adrian Gonzalez. Jan hitting .283, 3 home runs, 12 runs batted in. Roberto delivers, drops the first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. 3 runs, 3 hits for San Diego. No runs, a hit, and an error for the Dodgers. So Amarista is at second, Stoltz at first, and Bud Black and Dave Roberts happy with the beginning anyway. Strike 1 pitch is taken outside, 1-1. Remember, in the bottom of the first inning, we were talking about how many Dodgers in the lineup really wear out Eric Stoltz. However, the Padres have gotten him 3. 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's taken for a strike. 1-2 the count. So Roberto Hernandez trying to fight his way out. 3 runs, 3 hits, plus a walk to Gobert and a walk to Liriano. Hernandez ready in the 1-2 pitch, and that's inside. So in the first inning, he is struggling. He's made 37 pitches, paying the price. 26 pitches in this inning alone. So 2 balls and 2 strikes. Hernandez ready. There goes Amarista on a ground ball speared by Gonzalez. He goes to short for 1. Back to first. Double play as Hernandez covers first and takes the return throw. So Amarista had a good jump to try and steal third. However, instead the Dodgers turn a neat double play. And at the end of an inning and a half, 3-0 San Diego. This Friday starts your weekend with a bang. After the game with the Mets at 7:10, you can enjoy a Friday night fireworks show presented by Denny's. For tickets and more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Among other things, in that second inning, we told you that Amarista was trying to steal third as Solarte grounded into a double play. It should be duly noted that Alexei Amarista has stolen third 5 times. So you really have to keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, in the bottom of the second, it will be Matt Kemp checking in against Stoltz, and the first pitch is high, ball 1. Kemp hitting .417 against Stoltz. Left-hander's next pitch is outside. One of the things about Eric Stoltz, once he leaves the friendly confines but the spacious confines of Petco Park, he's been hurt on the road. He's lost 9 times on the road. The pitch to Kemp in for a strike, and the count 2-1. He's also allowed 15 home runs on the road, 6 at home, so he's up there having allowed 21 home runs. The next pitch, ground ball to short. Amarista is up with it, gets it over the first in time, so Kemp rolls to short, 1 out.
The Dodgers left fielder,
Giants are winning big. Last week checked, it was 8-2 behind Jake Peavy. I think they were going to the bullpen the last time we checked. Nevada now is Scott Van Slyke. Van Slyke 3 for 5 in the past against Stoltz. So that would be a .600 batting average. Eric into the windup, and the left-hander delivers in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Stoltz ready, and the strike 1 pitch is away. Eric was hurt early. Of his home runs, he's given up 6 of the 21 in the first inning. The next pitch is in there, though he's ahead in the count 1-2. The Giants are leading the Cubs 8-2, bottom of the 7th inning. Eric out of Plymouth, Indiana, lives in Argos, Indiana, went to Bethel College in Indiana, and the 1-2 fastball inside, 2-2 the count. Eric an even 6 and a solid .225. Dodgers signed him back in 2002, and he came up to the Dodgers in 2006. He goes 3-2 to Van Slyke. So he was with the Dodgers in 2006, 2007, 8, 9, and next thing you know, came up with the Rockies in 2011. 3-2 pitch, off speed, rip foul outside of third. That's exactly what Stoltz does. He's not going to overpower you in any way, shape, or form, but he mixes up the velocity very, very well. 3-2 pitch on the way, and he shoots a fastball in there, foul back. Though Van Slyke hanging tough, 3-2. Right-hand hitters have given Stoltz a bad time. They have over 71 hits against him, and there's another one. So Van Slyke, a ground ball single into left field, and with 1 out, the batter will be Justin Turner. For Eric Stoltz, and looking at his work,
number 10, Justin
he started out in April 1-3 with a high ERA over 5, 1-2 in May. June, no wins, 6 losses, and an earned run average over 6. Then in July, 1-2, but August, 2 wins, no losses, and a 1.37 earned run average. Turner fouls the first one back. And of course, you have a former left-hand pitcher running the show for the Padres, and that would be Bud Black. So he knows what it's all about out there on the mound. So as Bud watches Eric Stoltz, Turner watches from the plate. Van Slyke at first. It's 3-0 San Diego. Second inning, Stoltz delivers low and inside at the ankles. 1 ball and 1 strike. Eric deep in thought. Now lifts his head, looks in to get a sign. And the 1-1 pitch on the way. Eric delivers off speed, and it's fouled away at the plate. 1-2. Another thing about Stoltz, he is not a stopper. He is not the type of pitcher who will follow a loss and come up with a victory. In fact, he has lost 8 games following a Padre loss. Eric set, ready, delivers off speed and away at 80 miles an hour. His changeup has a tendency to sail away. 2-2. Eric's earned run average since the All-Star game is 3.5. He's done well in that department. 2-2 pitch, off speed, lined into right field, base hit. Up with it there is Liriano. Holding at second base is Van Slyke. So the Dodgers down 3-0, and they have back-to-back singles with 1 out. And Arizbel Arrubarena coming up. Turney gets a lot of base hits going the other way. He's a good hitter. Justin coming into the game was batting .308, so that'll move him up a couple of points. 2 on, 1 out. Arrubarena, a graceful shortstop, and last night was 1 for 3. He had a base hit, he walked, but he also struck out twice. Stoltz trying to work his way out of a jam. The left-hander delivers, and he's a little low. Ball 1, 1-0. Arrubarena is an even 6, 195. He has the nickname the Cricket, which is the same nickname that his father had. 2 on, 1 out, 3-0 Padres, second inning. Stoltz ready, back with a fastball swung on and missed, and the count 1-1. You're not going to get 95 and 96 mile an hour fastballs from Stoltz. But what happens is he'll throw 80, 79, then come back 88, and it looks even faster than that in comparison to the previous pitch. 1-1 pitch on the way, swung on and missed, again off speed, and Arrubarena way out in front of it. 1-2 the count. His base hit last night went to right field, and it drove in a run. Turner had doubled ahead of him last evening. 1 out, 2 on, 1 ball, 2 strikes. The pitch to Arrubarena is low, and we have a 2-2 count. Stoltz still in that somewhat comfort zone where he does reasonably well. .31-45, the opposition hitting in the 260s. 2-2 pitch on the way is taken low, off speed. 3-2 the count. I mean, if you're up there looking for a 90 mile an hour fastball, you're not going to get it most of the time. But now the big guessing game is, after all the off speed pitch, will he come back slow or give it the best fastball that he has? Grandal out to the mound to talk to him for a moment. Now Yasmani ready to settle in behind the plate. So 1 out. Crowd coming alive. 3-2 to Arrubarena. And on deck, A.J. Ellis. Stoltz ready. Eric delivers. Fast one that seemed to sink, and it wasn't really fast. It was 81 miles an hour. So Arrubarena fooled, and down he goes. The bottom just dropped out of it. And Arrubarena swinging at what he thought was coming up there much quicker, and the breaking ball almost in the dirt by the time Grandal made the catch. So a big out, 2 down, and A.J. Ellis coming up. Ellis 0 for 3 last night. He did have a sacrifice fly and takes a strike. There it was, as hard as Stoltz will throw. He hit 90. No balls in, 1 strike. Padres lead 3-0. We're in the bottom of the second inning. A.J. looks at a pitch in the dirt, and a 1 ball, 1 strike count. So Stoltz lives in the low 80s, and then occasionally he'll come up with that 90 mile an hour fastball. In the inning, Kemp grounded out. Van Slyke single to left, Turner single to right, but Arrubarena struck out. Now the 1-1 pitch to Ellis. off speed and high at 81, and it's a 2-ball 1-strike count. Ellis, one of the few hitters in the lineup who has not done very well against Stultz. Now the 2-1 pitch, that's way outside, ball 3. On deck, Roberto Hernandez. So 2 down and a 3-1 count. Hernandez at 6'4" will certainly give Stultz a big strike zone if he gets up there. Here's the 3-1 pitch on the way, swung on and missed, 3-2. That again is that rare 90-mile-an-hour fastball. You could grow a beard waiting for it. He uses it that well. So the runner's now ready to go, 3-2 with 2 down. Van Slyke and Turner, and the pitch fouled away off first base, carrying upstairs. 3 runs, 3 hits for San Diego. No runs, 2 hits, and an error for the Dodgers. In the second inning, 3 singles and 2 walks netted the Padres 3. Amarista had the big hit. Now the 3-2 pitch, runners go on ball 4. So the Dodgers load the bases with 2 out. The pitch just missing the inside corner. Hernandez, whom we've never saw swing the bat. We've never seen him swing the bat. He is 1 for 4 as a Dodger, but only 3 for 40 when he was with Philadelphia. So no indication in his history that he's any kind of a threat with the bat. So Roberto coming up, Van Slyke at third, Turner at second, Ellis at first. Stultz now has worked very hard. He made 11 pitches in the first inning, and he's made 30 already here in the second inning. Stultz pitching out of a stretch. Hernandez gives you a big target, fouls the first pitch back. What you would expect, he starts him with that 90-mile-an-hour fastball. 0-1 the count to Roberto Hernandez. With the bases loaded, he has 5 hits. As you know, the Dodgers, with the bases loaded, hitting just 174. Strike 1 pitch is in there. The worst thing the Dodgers can do, it seems, throughout the year is get the bases loaded. All they do is frustrate Mattingly. So no balls and 2 strikes. Stultz set, ready, comes back 0-2. It's just off the plate. 1-2 the count. So 2 singles by Van Slyke and Turner, a walk to Ellis, and a 1-2 count to Roberto Hernandez. 6'4" right-hander gives Stultz a good strike zone. Now the 1-2 pitch on the way, and it's a fastball low. Grandal set the glove low, and Stultz threw it even lower. 2-2. Eric trying to fight his way out of a jam. Standing room only on the infield. And the 2-2 pitch coming up. Stultz delivers. It's waved at futilely. Down goes Hernandez, and the Dodgers, as they have done so often this year, leave 3. And at the end of 2, that's the number. Padres 3, Dodgers nothing. Third inning, San Diego leading the Dodgers 3-0. In the third, it'll be Abraham Almonte, then Seth Smith and Jed Jerko, the numbers 2, 3, and 4 hitters in the Padre lineup. A reminder tomorrow night, change in the Dodger rotation. Clayton Kershaw will be pitching tomorrow night, and because of the Monday off day, it's perfect to keep him in his rotation. And Zach Greinke, who was supposed to pitch tomorrow, will now be pushed back to pitch on Saturday to rest that sore elbow a little bit longer. So Kershaw tomorrow night against big Tyson Ross. 3-0 in favor of the Padres, trying to win their 4th game out of 12 against the Dodgers. Almonte flied to center his trip, and he takes ball 1. Roberto Hernandez, we mentioned earlier, his best year ever with Cleveland in 2007, as he gets a strike to even it up. He won 19 games that year, and his sinker was really well known throughout the American League. He had 32 double play balls with that sinker. Ground ball down to short. Arozarena picks it up and throws him out easily, and we have 1 away. In fact, not only did Hernandez have 32 double plays, he had 430 ground balls and only 130 fly balls. Well, he has changed, as we all do, over the years. Right now, 212 ground balls to 116 fly balls. So it's a big difference. But maybe the biggest difference of all is he's lost his control. The first pitch to Seth Smith misses, ball 1. His walk rate has nearly doubled since 2007. Also, being as big as he is, he's vulnerable to the stolen base, as Seth Smith swings and misses, and the count 1-1. This year, the league has stolen 19 out of 21 against him. 1 ball and 1 strike. Seth Smith takes inside under the hands. Dodgers again load up the right side. Arozarena all alone on the left. Darwin Barney is really a shallow right fielder. Here's the 2-1 pitch. Seth swings, pulls it foul outside of first, and the count 2-2. Seth struck out in the first inning. Padres scored all 3 in the second. Coming into last night's game, in 10 games between the Dodgers and Padres, total runs in 10 games were only 49. The Dodgers were averaging 2.7 and the Padres 2.2. There's a line drive base hit the other way to left field. So Smith singles to left and Jerko coming up. So that's why last night was a bit of a surprise that there were a total of 14 runs in last night's game. Most of the other games 3-1, 2-1, but not last night and maybe not tonight. So Seth Smith's at first. That would be hit number 4 for the Padres. Jerko infield single, but that doesn't describe it. He hit what looked like a double and a diving, smothering stop by Turner, who then got up and threw 1 hop too late first base. Jerko takes a strike and the count 0-1. So Turner a good stop, but couldn't take the hit away. Jerko was on the DL with foot problems. He had plantar fasciitis, and they really missed him. He is a terrific young player. Jed Jerko. He promptly hits one to dead center. Back goes Puig, away back to the track, makes the catch on the track, and then gets the ball back to the infield. So Jerko, a long fly ball to center. Last night he homered over the center field wall. And with 2 out, the batter now, Yasmani Grandal. Grandal is one of those fellows who doesn't hit a lot. Nevertheless, he has 12 doubles, a triple, and 10 home runs. So a lot of extra base hits with only a .205 batting average. Smith at first with 2 out, draws a throw. Seth Smith does not do a lot of running at all. He's been involved in 2 plays. He has stolen 1 and he's been caught 1. The Grandal taking low. On deck, Jake Gobert. Yasmani, the big catcher. Hernandez out of his stretch with 2 out. The 1-0 pitch on the way. That's low. 2 balls and no strikes to Yasmani Grandal. Waiting on deck, as we mentioned, Jake Gobert. Grandal, switch hitter, batting left-handed, and takes a strike. 2 balls and 1 strike to count. When you look at the Padre lineup, they have 3 switch hitters and 3 left-hand batters. 3-1 now. Hernandez got in a lot of trouble in the 2nd inning when he walked 2 and gave up 3 hits for 3 runs. Now he's on the edge of another walk. 3-1 to count to Yasmani Grandal. Big right-hander ready. Here he comes. Ground ball hard into center field for a base hit. Stopping at second is Smith. And the batter will be Jake Gobert, the first baseman. The Grandal hard single up the middle.
For the Padres, number 4.
Just to the gloved side of Hernandez and clean as a whistle to Puig. So now here's Jake Gobert, who walked in the 2nd inning, and Gobert eventually came around to score a run. Made his debut as a pinch hitter and got a base hit, which brings up a point about the Padres. They have the highest number of pinch hits. They have 48. They have the highest number of pinch hit home runs. They have 8. And they have the highest number of pinch hit RBIs, 22. In other words, when Bud Black goes to the bench has been extremely productive. 0-1 to count to Jake Gobert. Hernandez comes back and misses away. 1 ball and 1 strike. It's 3-0 San Diego, looking for more in the 3rd inning. They remind us to tell you the Giants are leading the Cubs now 8-3, top of the 9th inning. So 2 on, Smith and Grandal. Not much speed out there. The 1-1 pitch on the way, swung on and missed. 1-2 to count to Jake Gobert. Gobert in and out of the box. Jake's out of Illinois. Sounds like he has a great job 6 weeks of the year. His family has hay rides, a pumpkin patch, a petting zoo, and wagon rides on the family's farm. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way, swung on and missed, and down he goes. So Gobert strikes out. 2 base hits, but no runs for the Padres. And at the end of 2.5 innings, 3-0 San Diego. to salute a veteran from World War II. He was a co-pilot of a B-17 flying combat missions in Germany. His plane was called Get 'em Yank, and one time they came back from a bombing mission. They counted 33 holes in the ship from enemy fire. Lieutenant Wallace E. Hull, and it was great to have him with us. Meanwhile, bottom of the third, 3-0 San Diego, and the first pitch a strike to Danny Barnon. Darwin Barney hit by a pitch in the first inning. And a balloon, a big changeup at 68. That's as slow as Stoltz has pitched tonight. 1 ball and 1 strike to Darwin Barney, who came into the game 6 for 12 against Stoltz. Next one in there. Barney followed by Puig, followed by Gonzalez. Now the pitch of the right-hand hitter way off the plate. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The scoreboard is incorrect. It should be 2-2. Now they've changed it. Dodgers have beaten San Diego 8 of 11 and 6 of the last 7. Barney pulls one foul down the left field line, and a fine catch by a gentleman down there who brought the glove and needed it. That ball was hit hard. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. Yeah, there's a lot of little boy in all of us. That man just reached over it, caught it, had the biggest grin you've ever seen when he sat down. The pitch outside, ball 3. 3-2 the count. So again, scoreboard is a count behind, and they correct it. Stoltz ready, and his 3-2 pitch off speed, lifted to center. It's playable. Almonte is right there, and Abraham puts it away. 1 down. So with 1 away in the third, Yasiel Puig coming up. Hernandez for the Dodgers has made 57 pitches in 3 innings. So of course you can't keep that up. He's going to have to improve his pitch count, and he's already down 3-0. So Hernandez resting as Puig checks in. Yasiel hit a bullet right at Amarista, who threw to first and doubled up Darwin Barney. This time ground ball in the hole, smothered, but then the ball rolls away from Amarista, and Puig is safely aboard. Yasiel kind of freezing after making the turn, daring Amarista to throw. Though Alexei came close, but no cigar. It'll be an infield single, and the batter is Adrian Gonzalez. It's worth another look on TV. Amarista diving. Actually, his arm was fully extended, and the ball went under the heel of his glove. He's a dandy. Alexei Amarista, the shortstop, taking over for Everett Cabrera. That landed heavily on glove and ball. That's a play where you hurt your wrist, and luckily for Amarista, he's all right. Gonzalez probably whacks one to right, carrying towards the bullpen gate. It'll bounce up into the stands for a ground rule double, and the Dodgers will have runners at second and third. Puig is around third, walking to the plate. They're going to have to send him back. Maybe Yasiel just decided to take a little walk on his own. So a long one-hop double for Gonzalez into the stands. So with second and third, 1 out, the batter is Matt Kemp. So Gonzalez, the one man who did not have big numbers against Eric Stoltz, and he's the one who comes up with the first extra base hit. So with the Dodgers down 3-0, they have runners at second and third and 1 out. Remember, they left the bases loaded in the second inning. Stoltz ready and delivers, and a little dribbler foul up along third. 0-1 the count. So far for Eric Stoltz, he has been able to get the leadoff man. He hit Barney in the first inning, got Kemp in the second inning, got Barney in the third. But leadoff batters have really given him a bad time all year. 0-1 the count. Second and third, one out, 3-0 San Diego. Puig down the line from third. Kemp takes way off the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. 3 runs, 5 hits for the Padres. No runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. Eric Stokes 0-1 against the Dodgers this year. 1-4 lifetime. 5-13 against the league. 1-1 pitch, off speed, high and outside. 2-1 to Matt. Of course, they're all looking for that 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Waiting on deck, Scott Van Slyke. 2-1 to Matt Kemp. Gonzalez and Puig taking cautious leads. 2-1 pitch on the way outside, ball 3. So Stokes now very close to loading the bases for the second time. That makes Bud Black scratch his head. The left-hander gets by with good control and change of speeds. He's hit a batter and he has walked 1. So Eric, hands at his sides, now set at the belt, and the 3-1 pitch to Matt Kemp swung on. Fly ball into right center. Almonte on the dead run makes the catch. Here comes Puig. Here comes a throw to the plate. And Yasiel scores. Over to third goes Gonzalez. A rolling score for Puig. Not a particularly good slide. And he's fortunate that he didn't hurt himself. And Puig walks off apparently okay. Probably skinned his left arm a little bit as he went rolling across the plate. So Kemp gets a sacrifice fly just deep enough. Almonte making the catch and then uncorked the throw. And Puig rolling around the attempted tag by Grandal. Really spent a lot of time in the dirt. Came in on a slide, not head first, but boy did he roll over and brought it in. So it's 3-1 San Diego with 2 down. Runner at third and the pitch outside, ball 1. As we do, and especially in a game like this, Eric Stokes had 3 wild pitches. Now the 1 ball, no strike count, and that's foul back. So Puig singles, Gonzalez doubles into third, and Puig comes home on the sacrifice fly off the bat of Matt Kemp. For Matt Kemp, 56 runs batted in. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Stokes delivers, and that finds the mark outside part of the plate. 1-2 the count. Stokes living in that 81, 82 mile an hour area, and then every now and then he pulls a trigger on a 90 mile an hour fastball, but only now and then. The trick is to know when is now and when is then. And the pitch foul back, and there was the 90 mile an hour fastball. 1-2 the count to Scott Van Slyke. Single to left field, got as far as third in the second inning. So 2 out, Gonzalez at third. Stokes trying to keep him there. And the pitch to Van Slyke swung on, little ground ball to Amarici, and the left side throws him out, and that's that. So the Dodgers get a single, double, and sac fly, score 1, and at the end of 3, it's 3-1 San Diego. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the all-new Chrysler 200, America's import, and by Jack in the Box. Try Jack's Spicy Chicken Club combo at Jack in the Box with fries and a drink while it lasts. 3-1 in favor of San Diego as we go to the fourth inning. Reimer Liriano, Alexi Amarista, and then the pitcher Eric Stultz. By the way, the Giants just defeated the Cubs 8-3. And Hernandez starts ball one. Eric Stultz in 3 innings had made 65 pitches. Roberto has made 58. 1 ball and no strikes. High foul out of play. In the Giant victory 8-3 over the Cubs, Joe Panik and Travis Ishikawa each had 3 hits. Ishikawa also had 3 RBIs. So a big win for the Giants. I would think, and in case you missed it, we'll repeat it to try and figure out what the Dodger lead really is against San Francisco. They're going to check, and that's a swing. Liriano with a big grin and a 1-ball 2-strike count. The Giants last night played the Cubs, bottom of the 5th. Cubs led 2-0, and it was pouring rain. And rain and rain and rain. And the grounds crew did a very poor job of trying to cover the infield. So much so, the infield was a mess before the crew got close to covering it. And the Dodgers had to watch to figure out how that game was going to come out. With the Cubs winning 2-0 in the bottom of the 5th, that made it an official game. Well, the Giants were so upset over the poor job done by the grounds crew, they protested, and the protest was held up. So that means the Dodger lead is not 4.5. At the start of the day, it was 4. There's a line drive base hit by Liriano. They're going to conclude that game. They're going to start in the bottom of the 5th inning tomorrow before the regularly scheduled game. So let's say the Dodger lead 4, but the Giants have just 1. So for the moment, it would appear the Dodger lead is 3.5. And they are down 3-1 here in the 4th inning, and Roberto Hernandez has not been very impressive. All you'd have to do is look at Don Mattingly, and he's not a happy camper. 3 runs and a half a dozen hits, 3 innings plus. That was awfully close. Liriano, in the time that he has been with the Padres, 8 games, he has 1 stolen base, 1 for 1. He started to go, drew a throw, and just did get back. Liriano in the minor leagues, hold your breath, stole as many as 65. So he can run. 23 years old, but a surprising 220 pounds. Alexi Amarista single to center in the 2nd inning, hitting .233. Time. One ball and no strikes. The Giants have to finish up the one we talked about tomorrow, starting in the bottom of the 5th inning. They're trailing 2-0. Then the Giants play the regularly scheduled game, and then they go to Washington, D.C., while the Dodgers are playing the New York Mets. And Washington is quite a place to visit. That's ball 2. The Washington Nationals have just won their 9th straight, a 3-2 walk-off win over Arizona. 6 of their 9 wins have been 1-run victories. 4 of the last 6 have been walk-offs. They have 1 more with Arizona tomorrow, and then Washington will welcome the Giants. And remember, after the Dodgers' brief trip where they go to Arizona and San Diego next week, they will come back 3 games against Washington. 2-0 to Amarista. That's a strike. 2-1. Three to 1 San Diego. Fourth inning. Liriano at first. Nobody out. Padre with 5 hits and 2 walks. Double play slowed them down in the second inning when they scored 3. And there goes Liriano, and it's a base hit to right field. Kemp takes it on a hop. Liriano steaming into third and makes it easily. So just like that, Hernandez in trouble again. Singles by Liriano and Amarista. And the batter is Eric Stults. We're waiting to see any activity in the Dodger bullpen, because you would certainly expect it by now. 7 hits, 2 walks, and 3 runs allowed by Roberto Hernandez, and we're only in the 4th inning. Hernandez working now on Eric Stults. You would expect Stults to bunt, stay out of the double play, and if he's successful, the Padres would have runners at second and third and 1 out. The whole idea, get Amarista to second base. Now let's see what he does. He singled to left field in the second inning. Holds the bat out and takes ball 1. No one throwing in the Dodger bullpen. A couple of guys got up, stretched, sat back down again. Glenn Hoffman talking to Liriano. Amarista is a threat all the time. Amarista has stolen 18 out of 26. 1 ball and no strikes. Stults gets the bunt down, and it's foul. So Eric Stults coming back. I vaguely remembered when he was with the Dodgers that he was a pretty good hitter, and I said that before he came up, although his numbers were very bad. And Stults got a base hit to left field. In digging back, last year Stults had 10 hits, so he's pretty handy with that bat. This year he sacrificed twice. 1-1 to count. Amarista drawing a throw. Seven hits and 2 walks for 3 runs, and the Padres trying to get some more. And the bunt is down. Good bunt, picked up by Gonzalez, who fakes, throws on a bounce, and Darwin Barney makes a wonderful play. Gonzalez was so sure that he wanted to hold the runner at third. He turned and hurried his throw, and Barney made a wonderful play on what turns out to be a sacrifice. It could have been a disaster. So the bunt is down. Ellis allowed Gonzalez to pick it up. He faked third and then threw it on a hop, and Barney, on one knee, keeping his foot on the bag, was able to make the play. So second and third, 1 out. Of course, Darwin, a Gold Glove winner 2 years ago for the Cubs. He can pick it. Stults did his job, and now it's up to Solarte, who is 0 for 2 and takes a strike. Solarte grounded to Gonzalez, and in the second inning grounded to Gonzalez, and that was the double play. 0 for 2, hitting .280. Liriano at third, Amarista at second. Fouled away. 0-2 to Solarte. On deck, Almonte. Almonte last night, you may remember, had 4 hits. He's 0 for 2 tonight. Roberto has made 71 pitches, and he's struggling here in the 4th inning. 1-2. Nice block again by A.J. 2-2 the count. Hernandez, while he was pitching with Philadelphia, had 5 wild pitches, and he had 1 in his recent outing with the Dodgers. So with a runner at third, he's a risk. And that runner is Liriano, who runs very well. Amarista the same at second. 2-2 the count to Solarte, and ground foul. Jan Solarte, 0 for 2 tonight, hitting .280, 3 home runs, 12 runs batted in. And fly ball into left center. Puig is there, tagging is Liriano. Strong throw, cut off. No, Gonzalez fake cutting it off to keep Amarista at second base. So Gonzalez is always thinking. That makes it 4-1 San Diego. Though Adrian put on a great fake on Puig's throw. Last night, remember, he cut it off and got an out. This time he faked to make sure Amarista would not go to third. And he didn't. The run well in. So Solarte, a sac fly. Scoring easily is Liriano. And the Padres have a nice comfortable 4-0 lead. Not a ball thrown in the Dodger bullpen. There goes Amarista to third. He is in there. That is the 6th time this year that Alexi Amarista has stolen third base. 6 times. And he would have stolen it in the second inning, except Solarte hit into a double play. So he's a dynamite shortstop, a threat on the bases. How many times do you see anybody steal third? Well, 6 times for him. The pitch, a strike at the plate. 0-2 the count. 4 runs, 7 hits for the Padres. 1 run, 4 hits for the Dodgers. Almonte coming off that 4-hit game. So Eric Stoltz sitting back with a 3-run cushion. 0-2. 1-2. Dodger bullpen, remember last night, Wright, Howell, and League, and finally Jansen. Though Mattingly trying to get by with Hernandez without burning up the pen, and yet without letting the game go down the drain. 1-2. 2-2. Clayton Kershaw tomorrow night against Tyson Ross. We're not sure of Friday's pitcher. It might be Dan Haren. And we do know that Zach Greinke will pitch on Saturday. There's Haren sitting next to Kershaw. Ground ball. The play by Darwin Barney, and the inning is over. But the sac fly gets a run in, and at the end of 3.5 innings, San Diego 4 and the Dodgers 1. Bottom of the fourth inning with the Padres leading 4-1. Join us on the next episode of Backstage Dodgers. We'll join Drew Butera with a visit to the Georgia Aquarium. That's the new episode of Backstage Dodgers tomorrow at 5 right here on Sportsnet LA. Bottom of the fourth, and it'll be Turner, Arrubarena, and then Ellis. Change just floats in for a strike. There was an old Vicente Padilla soap bubble. 0-1. Turner single to right. Second inning, batting .312. Another one. Same one. One was 66. That one was 71. No balls, 2 strikes. 1-2. So 3 pitches, 66, 71, and 71. And you're still thinking, if you're the hitter, the 90-mile-an-hour fastball, when is it gonna come? 2-2. Didn't get one of them. Another 71. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Grandal going out now to talk to his pitcher briefly. Dodgers trailing by 3. It's 4-1. Roberto Hernandez has labored 4 innings, 80 pitches. And he's given up 4 runs, 7 hits, plus 2 walks. Another change. Backhanded by Amarista. Low throw. Nice pick by Gobert. And they get Turner. Every one. Slow pitch.
Shortstop number 11, Arisbel Arruabarrena.
So Turner, ground ball, backhanded nicely by Alexei. Kind of looked at the ball. Knew that Turner doesn't run that fast, but his throw was in the dirt. And a nice pick at the other end by Gobert. So Arruabarrena, who struck out in the second inning, 0 for 1. Ball 1. Giants won their ball game. And a drive to left. Seth Smith right there. Ball hit right at him. 2 down. And the batter will be A.J. Ellis. The Giants' protest was upheld. They're going to finish up last night's game Thursday. You might wonder, there have been a lot of protests, but when was the last time one was upheld? You'll have to go back to 1986. A.J. Ellis walked in the second inning. And that's the fastball. 89. No higher than 90 yet. 4 runs, 7 hits. 1 error for the Padres. 1 run, 4 hits. 1 error for the Dodgers. Check swing. Swing, says first base umpire Adrian Johnson. And the count, no balls and 2 strikes. Plate umpire in the series right now, Mike Everett. Mike was behind the plate with a no-hitter. You have to go back a ways. Kevin Millwood pitched a no-hitter in April of 2003. He was calling balls and strikes. He went to New Mexico State and actually played in the Connie Mack World Series. And one other thing about Mike, he's a terrific trumpet player. In fact, 2-time All-State music trumpet player in 1981 and 82. Mike Everett, born in New Mexico. 0-2 the count. One and two. Quiet in the ballpark. An artist at work. Eric Stokes. Of course, if you look at his record, not much of an artist. He's 5-13. but he can give you a bad time. There's the fastball. Got it low. So he'll be making his 80th pitch. So we're in the 4th inning, and we will have seen 160 pitches already. 2-2. And goes right back with the off speed. 3-2. Waiting on deck, Roberto Hernandez. That's going to go down the line foul, so AJ is still there. A reminder, tomorrow night, Clayton Kershaw against Tyson Ross. The Mets will then come in. We'll assume Dan Herron, and then Saturday, Zach Greinke. Tyson Ross, a big man from Oakland. He'll be on the hill tomorrow night. Fastball lifted to center. Coming up is Almonte to make the catch. So the Dodgers go 1-2-3, and at the end of 4, it's 4-1 San Diego. And the Dodgers' newest double play combination 20 years from now, Damon and Pythias. Atta boy, reach for the heavens, you betcha, and don't ever stop reaching. Oh, bless their hearts. Yeah, we're right with you, pal. Don't go away. You could just look at them for a while, couldn't you? One's licking his lips. Someone has just eaten something. Meanwhile, we move along to the 5th inning. 4-1 San Diego. Seth Smith, Jed Jerko, and then Yasmani Grandal, and that's ball 1. So in 4 innings, Hernandez has made 80 pitches, and the left-hander Stultz 82. Well, they're both working very hard. 2-0 the count to Seth Smith. Dodgers, as always, load up on him on the right side, but his base hit was a single to left. 2-0. In there. Padres scored 3 in the 2nd. They left 2 men on base in the 3rd and had a couple of base hits and a run in the 4th. 2-2 the count to Seth Smith. Seth Smith, we told you, was a backup quarterback at the University of Mississippi. 12 home runs, in only 3 parks, 8 of the 12 at Petco, 3 at Coors Field, and 1 at Target Field in Minnesota. Now he comes up with his second hit, this one up the middle. So Hernandez gives up another hit. That's hit number 8. Smith at first, and here's Jed Jerko. Jerko singled in the second inning, flied to center in the third. Don't let that 205 batting average fool you. He's just coming back off the DL, but he's hitting over 300 since coming back from the disabled. Foul ball. Jerko was reinstated on the 28th of July. He had plantar fasciitis. In the last 20 games, he's hit .312 with 20 runs batted in. 0-1. 1-1. We talked last night about the fact the Padres pitching might very well be the best in the history of the ball club, but the offense is improving. In June, they were hitting .171. That's an all-time low for the club in any month, but they've picked it up. Ground ball, Turner to Barney to Gonzalez. So the Dodgers get the double play around the horn, they used to call it. 5-4-3, and we have 2 down. So where they hit .171 in June, then they hit .249 in July, and they're hitting right around .280 in August. So 2 down, and Yasmani Grandal coming up. Padres hitting better, but some of their problems this year so far, they're 15th in the National League in scoring runs. The Cardinals are 14th. Padres are 15th in scoring runs in the first 6 innings, but not tonight. They've scored 4 in the first 4 innings. High fly ball to right field, going back onto his fence. Plenty of room. So the base hit followed by the double play. That is the second time tonight that Hernandez faced only 3 batters in an inning. And at the end of 4.5, 4. Four to 1 San Diego, bottom of the 5th inning. Don't forget Sunday, Dodgers and Mets at 1:10, and the first 40,000 fans in attendance take home a Matt Kemp figurine. presented by New Era. For tickets and more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. In the bottom of the 5th inning, Dodgers make a move. D. Gordon will start it off. Batting for Hernandez. Pedro Baez throwing down in the bullpen. Hernandez had a very tough 91 pitches in 5 innings. 1 ball and no strikes to Gordon. Gordon, the playmaker, trying to shake something loose, hitting .285, and as you know, 56 stolen bases. And a strike, 1-1. So Hernandez gave up 8 hits, 4 runs, walked a couple, had a 3-batter inning twice, and labored hard in the 2nd and 3rd inning. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Gordon, Barney, and Puig in that order. Foul ball down the line. Chased one in the dirt, picked up by Grandal in the out recorded. So Gordon comes off the bench and strikes out. 0 for 1.
Second baseman, number 30, Darwin Barney.
Gordon is 3 for 8 as a pinch hitter, and we have 1 out here in the 5th inning. Darwin Barney hit by a pitch, fly to center, 0 for 1. He was certainly in the starting lineup tonight to rest D. Gordon, but also because he was 6 for 12 against Eric Stoltz. There's that slow freight. His lowest pitch tonight, 66. That was 68. Oh, and 2. Darwin Barney, Gold Glover in 2012. Interesting relatives. His grandfather Korean and his grandmother Japanese. Strike 2 pitch. Ball 1. In fact, in Little League today, the team from South Korea played the team from Japan, and if I remember correctly, South Korea won that game. Sliced foul out of play. The little girl, the talk of the baseball world, certainly in Little League, Monet, she started the game against Las Vegas, and I know she gave up 3 runs in the 1st inning, and they finally took her out. That'll do it for Barney. Giants won, remember. Technically, if you discount for the moment that game that's held up with the rain and the Giants, if you figure they were 4 back, they could cut the lead to 3.5. Yasiel Puig hit into a double play. It was a line drive at Amarista and then single to the hole. Amarista's playing over in that area now, but in front of him is Solarte to handle the ground ball. And a very quick 5th inning for the Dodgers. In fact, the last 8 in a row have been retired, and San Diego leads 4-1.
Come on, there you go.
player, had 418 stolen bases as a Dodger and 557 stolen bases in his career. So automatically you think, well, he stole a lot of bases. But he also hit home runs. You know, at one time, Davey really was a center fielder, just like Bill Russell, and they were converted to infielders. Well, on this day in 1974 at Wrigley Field, Chicago, Davey Lopes had 3 home runs, a double, and a single. The Dodgers beat the Cubs 18-8. That's 15 total bases for Davey Lopes. And if you think that was on the fluke, a few years later, 1979, Davey Lopes hit 28 home runs. So when you look at Davey, not just a base stealer, not just a hitter, he was a home run hitter when it really counted. He hit 10 or more 5 years. That's a lot for a guy known strictly as a stolen base man. Let's go back to this one. Davey now pretty much of a professor, trying to help people like D. Gordon negotiate around the base paths. He's a very important part of the club, standing in that first base coaching box. Pedro Baez will now take over the pitching chores for Roberto Hernandez. And it'll be Jake Gobert, followed by Raimel Liriano, and then Alexi Amarici. Baez in his 7th game, ERA about 2.5. Gobert has walked, scored a run, and struck out. 4-1 Padres. Ground ball up the middle. Gordon refuses to quit. Isn't that something? I mean, the chance was 1 in a million, and yet D was not about to let it go by if he could possibly catch up to it. Just watch this. I mean, he's in center field now, still trying to get his man, but it's an infield single, although really, even though Gordon got it, it's an outfield single, isn't it? And then he loses his balance. Tremendous effort. You see that from him day in and day out. That is the 9th hit for San Diego. And here's Liriano, who has walked and singled and scored twice. We're in the 6th inning. And that's hit in the air to right. Kemp going back. Picks it off. Quickly turns, gets it back to the infield. Long fly ball to right, 1 away. Alexi Amarista. Single to center, single to right, stole third, and probably would have stolen third in the 2nd inning as well as in the 4th. But trying to steal third in the 2nd inning, Solarte hit into a double play to win the inning. 6 times the shortstop for the Padres has stolen third base. 6 times. Tommy Medica, who appeared as a pinch hitter last night for Gobert and flied to right, comes out on deck to bat for Stokes. Blaine Boyer is up now in the San Diego bullpen. One ball and no strikes. One and one. Eric Stokes, who's in line for a victory. He's 1-4 in his career against his old club. Gets 5s from Jed Jerko. 1-1. 1-2. Baez throws very hard. That was 96 miles an hour. Alexi Amarista. 5'6", maybe 5'7", but a solid ball player. And a hopper to short, off the glove of Arrubarena and on through into center field. It looked like a double play ball, and Arrubarena, perhaps thinking of the shovel to second base, let it go by. So we'll assume that's certainly an error. Take another look. He's heading to the bag, and it just got away, and it's a boot. So a tough break for Baez. That might easily have ended the inning. Instead, he has to work even harder. First and second, one out. Tommy Medica coming up, hitting .257. Medica plays a lot of first base. 7 for 29 with a home run and 3 runs batted in as a pinch hitter. Baez in trouble. Gets a strike. Medica's from San Jose, California. He went to Santa Clara. He also went to Bellarmine High School in San Jose. In his major league debut, that was last September 2013, he homered in his major league debut. One and one. Medica, by the way, very well had been an outfielder, and the Padres moved him to first base when he seriously injured his throwing arm. He dislocated the shoulder and tearing the labrum off the bone. So with his issues, they couldn't put him as a catcher. They moved him to first, and he's a good first baseman. Hit .250 last year. 1-2 the count. Medica 6'1", 190, 26 years old. Baez 6'2", 200, and he's 26. With Gobert at second, Amarista at first, and one out. 4-1 San Diego. Giants won 8-3. 2-2. Medica, besides playing a little outfield, was a strong-armed catcher. With all those shoulder problems, he's a first baseman. Two balls and 2 strikes to pinch hitter Tommy Medica. Ball 3. Waiting on deck, the leadoff man Solarte. Jan Hervis Solarte. Been a long night for Mattingly. Hernandez made 91 pitches in 5 innings. Gave up 9 hits, couple of walks, and 4 runs. 3-2 with 1 out. We'll see what they do with the runners. Gobert at second. Amarista at first. Runners hold, and a high fly ball to shallow center. Coming in is Cleve to make the catch. The runners hold. The Medica fly ball, 2 out. Inning should be over except for the error by Arrubarena. And Jan Solarte coming up. Grounded to first, and it was turned into a double play. And then last time up, sacrifice fly and a run batted in. We were talking about the Little League today, talking first about Darwin Barney's grandparents. South Korea did defeat Japan 4-2 in the Little League. And the big game with Monet, the pitcher, she had a bad day. Gave up 3 runs in the first inning. They eventually took him out. Las Vegas went on to beat Philadelphia 8-1. And that's the curse of the cover of Sports Illustrated. Poor little girl went on it and had a bad game. 0-2 the count to Solarte. Jan Hervis last night had 2 hits. 0 for 2 with the RBI fly ball tonight. When the Dodgers come up, Gonzalez, Kemp, and Van Slyke. Gonzalez has a double, Kemp has a scoring fly ball, and Van Slyke is 1 for 2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Baez signed with the Dodgers back in 2007. Kind of a late arrival at 26. 1-2. Slapped foul down the line. Again, with folks coming in and out of the broadcast, we want to remind you, Clayton Kershaw tomorrow night against Tyson Ross. Looks like Dan Herron would open up Friday against the Mets. Zach Greinke will be pitching Saturday. A balky elbow, they'll give him a little extra rest. Interesting, before the game, Zach Greinke was catching the ceremonial pitch by his father-in-law. High fly ball, very playable. Kemp's at the other end of it. All right, single, an error, nothing else, 2 left, and we're heading to the bottom of the 6th. 4-1 Padres. Play is brought to you by Subway. Try this month's $6 featured footlong, the barbecued oven roasted chicken melt. Subway, eat fresh. And by your Southern California Mazda dealers. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning. The Padres lead the Dodgers 4-1. Padres go into their bullpen, and their bullpen has really been terrific all year. Blaine Boyer will be coming out. Blaine's out of Atlanta, Georgia. In fact, he was drafted by the Braves in the 3rd round. He went to Marietta High School, and he still lives there. Gonzalez, first ground ball to Gurko, and 1 away. So Boyer takes care of his first man, and the batter is Matt Kemp. Blaine Boyer went to school with Bobby Cox's daughter. Remember Bobby Cox, the famous Atlanta great manager and in the Hall of Fame now. Anyway, he went to school with Skyler and two little kids, and he would say, "You tell your daddy I'm going to pitch for the Braves one day." Darned if he didn't do it back in 2005. From the Braves to the Diamondbacks to the Mets to the Padres. And it's ball one to Matt Kemp. Want to know, going into this series, San Diego's bullpen had only lost 3 possible wins. Inheriting runners, they just will not allow them to score. They've been magnificent. And they don't blow saves. If they have the opportunity, they are so good. The lowest number of blown saves, 250% below the National League average. The National League average is you blow 6 saves. They also don't allow home runs, strike out hitters. I mean, they've been great. 1-2. I guess the bullpen looked so good to the Padres that they made the deal sending Houston Street to the Angels. Hard to talk about a wonderful bullpen when you're 11.5 games out of first place, but the pen has really done the job. Boy, is that thing up. It's not far, but it's up. And Amarista. Big league pop fly, they used to call him. 2 down. Dodgers have not done anything since Matt Kemp had the sacrifice fly to cash in Yasiel Puig. So that's 2, 5, 8, 10 in a row retired. Here's Van Slyke, singled and grounded out, 1-4-2. Foul back. When the day began, the Major League stats had the Giants 4.5 games behind the Dodgers. So if you just go with that and forget all about the fact there's a game very much up in the air. I mean, 2-0 Cubs, 5th inning. That's certainly no lock for Chicago. But if you want to go for 4.5 instead of 4, Dodgers lose, they'll be 3.5 back. If you don't want to count that rained game in Chicago, Giants would be 3 back. But either way, it's the old story. You can hear footsteps, and we're not into September yet. They keep talking about the Dodgers and how easy their schedule is. Boy, is that setup talk? Boy, you guys got it made. I mean, you're not playing anybody but below 500 team. We have certainly danced to that tune before. Carl Crawford, G. Gordon, the rest of the ball club. Of course, when you talk to them, they'll tell you, and Mattingly's always being quoted as saying, hey, one game at a time. We're not going to look down the road who we're playing or where they stand. One game at a time. 1-2. There's going to be a soft line drive to Amarista. Down go the Dodgers. 3, 6, 9, 11 in a row. And at the end of the 6th, it's 4-1 San Diego. inning. They now lead 4-1, top of the 7th. What's ahead for the Dodgers? Well, maybe more trouble, although tomorrow night Clayton Kershaw will be on the mound going up against Tyson Ross. Then the New York Mets will be here for the weekend. The Mets are 13.5 games behind the raging Washington Nationals, who just won their 9th in a row. The Mets will be in for the weekend, trying to snap a 3-game losing streak today or tomorrow. So 4-1, because after the Mets, the Dodgers go out a 2-game series in Arizona, and then 3 more in San Diego against Bud Black. And we told you their bullpen has been magnificent. Well, the pen is 44-1 when leading after 6 innings, and combine that with the Dodgers, who are not a comeback team at all. In fact, they had 18 comeback wins going into the series, and that's the fewest in the league. Messrs. Kemp and Turner and all the rest of the crew, they play hard and well, but they do not come back. We'll see if they fly into the face of that tonight. 2 balls and no strikes. Abraham flied to center, grounded to short, grounded to second. That's a little high, up out of the zone at 96. 3-0 the count to Almonte, switch hitter. Fastball drilled in there at 96. Of course, when you talk to scouts, the number 96, 97 is impressive. Except the scouts talk about movement. The fact that the velocity is high is not the big league answer. 3-2. Baez from Bani in the Dominican Republic. Fastball and a slider. 3-2. Fastball hit to the hole, back to get it. Arrubarena gets rid of it, but not in time. Almonte beats it out. That's the advantage of being a switch hitter. Batting right-handed, he would have been thrown out. Batting left-handed, he's able to beat the play. Arrubarena set and throws. Almonte beats him. So an infield single. Second hit against Baez. 10 hits now for San Diego to go with their 4 runs. Padres have had at least 1 hit in every inning but the first. They went in order in the first inning, but they've been making noise ever since. And another leadoff man gets aboard for San Diego. And ball 1. Jerko led off the second with a base hit. Liriano led off the 4th inning with a base hit. Smith led off the 5th inning with a base hit. Gobert led off the 6th inning with a base hit. Almonte leads off the 7th with a base hit. And of course, that violates the second commandment of pitching. The first commandment, first pitch strike. The second commandment, get the leadoff man. And the Dodgers, Hernandez and now Baez, have violated that. 4-1 San Diego. Dodgers have also stopped dead in the water offensively. Two balls and no strikes. Seth Smith struck out, single to left and single to center. In the Padre lineup, now that Almonte has a base hit, only Solarte is hitless. and he has a scoring fly ball. Three and 0 the count. The Dodgers coming into this game one game above 500. Hard to believe that you can be in first place in a division playing 500 ball at home, which means they're trying to do it the hard way. Win on the road. So far they've gotten away with it. That's not usually, however, the sign of a good ball club. 3 and 0. That's a strike. For instance, if you looked at the Brewers 6 games above 500 at home, and on the road they're even better. They're 9 games above 500. They're both very good home and road. The Nationals 15 games above 500 at home, 3 in front on the road. So for the Dodgers, they are really trying to do it the hard way. High fly ball into deep right center. Puig on the dead run, on the track, makes the catch. Tagging but holding is Almonte on an accurate throw into second base. So Seth Smith just missed unloading that one. 1 down. And the batter will be Jed Jerko. Single, fly to center, grounded into a double play. Jerko, in watching him play ever since he first came up, you have the feeling he's going to be playing for a long time in San Diego. Jerko is 25 years old. He'll be 26 the end of September. Very good hitter. Ball 1. Jerko unloaded that 3-run home run last night. Last year, when he played almost every day, as opposed to this year where he's been on the DL. Last year he hit 23 home runs. For a rookie second baseman to hit 23 home runs, that's a headline. He gets his name in with, among others, Joe Gordon, the great second baseman of the Yankees way back in 1938. Joe hit 24. Jed hit 23. Dan Uggla, in his prime with Florida as a rookie second baseman, hit 27. 1 ball and 1 strike. 4-1 San Diego, 7th inning. Line drive, foul. 1-2. Jerko, good ball player, was a linebacker at West Virginia. He was a all-state selection 3 times in baseball. He was also all-state in basketball. Second team All-American in baseball. I mean, he's a remarkable athlete. 5'10", 200-pounder. And there goes the runner, foul ball back. So Almonte off to the races, trying to steal his first base. He is 0 for 1. So 1-2 to Jerko. Jed is playing in only his 77th game. They played 125. He had not much of a chance to put up numbers. And a high fly ball to left center and deep. Puig saying he'll take care of it, and does. And holding is Almonte. So an infield single followed by 2 fly balls to Puig. And the batter will be Yasmani Grandal. We have the paid attendance tonight, 46,641. 46,641. About 1,000 more than last night. Dodgers will now go over the 2,900,000 mark. So by tomorrow night, they'll be awfully close to 3 million. And they should pass it Saturday night. Remember, Kershaw is pitching tomorrow night. Greinke's elbow a little sensitive. They want to give him a little extra rest. So Kershaw tomorrow night. Dan Herron will then pitch Friday. And Zach Greinke will pitch Saturday. And there's a line drive to D. Gordon. So Grandal lines out. Almonte stays at first. Throw, runner, no runs, a hit, a man left. And at the end, it's 6.5, 4-1 Padres. And the Dodgers have been just stopped dead in the water. The last Dodger to get on base was Adrian Gonzalez, who doubled in the third inning. After that, the next 11 men in a row have gone down. And now Blaine Boyer ready to work his second inning. He made only 10 pitches to retire the Dodgers in the sixth. It'll be Turner, Arrubarena, and Ellis in that order, with D. Gordon, remember, hitting ninth. Justin Turner single to right, grounded to short, 1 for 2. Ball 1. We'll double check with the umpire. I think they're telling Turner it's a strike, not a ball, and Justin a little shocked, can't believe it. Turner said, what? 0-1. One ball and one strike. Blaine Boyer. It's a great name, Boyer. There was some dandy players. One of the best played with the Cardinals and eventually came to the Dodgers. Ken Boyer. There was Cleet Boyer, who played third base for Atlanta. Floyd Boyer, who was a relief pitcher for the Cardinals. And here's Blaine Boyer. But he is not related. The bullpens are busy. Nick Vincent in the Padre pen. Brian Wilson in the Dodger bullpen. 1-2 the count to Justin Turner. Two and two. Always remember Bill Russell as a kid infielder came to the Dodgers and they roomed him with Kenny Boyer because the traveling secretary Lee Scott said, I'm going to room you with Boyer. He'll teach you the ropes. And from that day on, Billy Russell was nicknamed Ropes. Ball three. I remember, and I'm going way back now, the Cardinals were struggling, and Harry Carey was the voice of the Cardinals in those days. And the Cardinals were just not hitting. Here's a 3-2 pitch. And it's ball four. Anyway, Harry Carey said, once you get past Boyer and Musial, it's like having the weekend off. Oh, the players were furious. But that was Harry Carey. Once you get past Boyer and Musial. All right, Turner's aboard with a walk, so the Dodgers finally get a base runner in the seventh for the first time since the third. And here's Arrubarena, who has struck out, fly to left, and committed an error. And hits it to right. Coming in and over, making the diving catch is Liriano, and holding on is Turner. So Arrubarena losing a base hit on a nice play. The right fielder who hurt a little bit after making that catch. Yeah. Take another look. He's going to backhand the ball and then land heavily, but he held on to it. Nice play by Reimer Liriano, taking a hit away from Arrubarena. And here's A.J. Ellis. Walk, fly to center. Strike. One out, bottom of the seventh, 4-1 San Diego. And remember, the Giants knocked off the Cubs 8-3. Talking before about how the Dodgers are trying to do it the hard way. If they lose tonight, they'll be a 500 ball club at home. The Giants are 7 games above 500 on the road, but they're 500 at home. And remember, they started off at home like they were unbeatable. That'll go foul. 1-2 the count. On deck, remember, D. Gordon batted for Hernandez, stayed in the game, bats 9. Baez is the leadoff man, and Darren Balsley is checking with the San Diego bullpen. Two and two. The other figure that is so perplexing about the Dodgers is their record against left-hand starters. Ground ball to third, juggled down to second for one. They still get the double play. If the Dodgers lose to Eric Stoltz tonight, they will be 7-8 at home against left-handers. 13-3 against them on the road. How come? 4-1 San Diego. 1 San Diego. Friends, be one of the first 50,000 fans at Dodger Stadium on Tuesday, September the 2nd. Dodgers and Washington Nationals, and you'll receive a Magic Johnson no-look pass bobblehead. Compliments of Coca-Cola. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/bobblehead. Dodgers need more than magic right now. They're down by 3. Brian Wilson comes on to try and get the Padres out in the top of the 8th. Brian will face Gobert, Liriano, and Amarista. And then Blaine Boyer, or perhaps a pinch hitter. Boyer doing a neat job. Made 22 pitches and faced only 6 batters, which is yet another paragraph in the story that has been the San Diego bullpen. Jay Gobert has walked and scored, struck out and singled, 1 for 2. First baseman hitting a nice .286. And starts him with an off-speed pitch and a strike. We were mentioning last night, Gobert works on the family farm in the fall and winter, and there's a special 6-week period that he absolutely loves. During that 6-week period, the farm features hay rides, a pumpkin patch, a petting zoo, and wagon rides. He came from the A's in the deal that sent Kyle Blanks to Oakland. 0-2. Now back. Dale Thayer, who appeared briefly coming out of the pen last night. He worked the 7th inning and made 14 pitches. Thayer is getting ready in the San Diego pen. 0-2. Still 0-2 on the foul ball. Since Street was traded away, the Padres do not have a standout closer. Joaquin Benoit would fill that role. Oh, 0-2 the count. In fact, it looks like Benoit, but it's pronounced Benoit. Monsieur Benoit will say au revoir. 1-2 the count. Little slider in the dirt. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Gobert. Brian Wilson coming out of the Dodger bullpen. Brian's win in 48 games now. Time, no pitch. He was deep in thought. Didn't realize that Gobert had walked far away from home plate. Wilson strikeout to walks, a little more than 2-1. Bouncer up the middle, but the Dodgers stacked up the right side. Though Justin Turner takes care of that. 1 out in the 8th inning.
Right fielder, number 7.
Reimer Liriano. He's been busy tonight. He's been on base twice. He has scored twice. He has a walk and a base hit. And then last time up, flied to right. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 8th inning, they have D. Gordon. Then we'll see about a hitter for Wilson and Yasiel Puig. 0-1. Dodgers have Andre Ethier, Carl Crawford, the left-hand batters. Miguel Rojas, and then the backup catcher, Drew Butera. So we'll see either Crawford or Ethier for sure in the bottom of the 8th. 0-1. Timed that nicely, finds the gap. And Liriano easily into second, and he will hold up there. So Liriano on base 3 times tonight with a walk, a single, and a double. And the batter will be Amarista.
Shortstop, number 5, Alexi Amarista.
Alexi's been on base twice, in fact 3 times. He singled to center, singled to right, and then he reached on an error charge to Arrubarena. Padres with 11 hits, only Solarte is hitless. He's 0 for 3 with a sac fly. Ball 1. Will Venable will now come out and bat for Boyer as Dale Thayer is getting ready in the pen. So there's Venable. Will appeared as a pinch hitter last night and walked. 1 ball and no strikes. Only the first inning where the Padres silenced 1, 2, 3. They've had at least 1 hit in every inning since. One and 2. Padres scored 3 in the second inning. Jerko singled with 1 out. Goldberg walked and Liriano walked to load the bases. Amarista singled, and then Stoltz got a base hit, and 3 runs came in. The extra run in the third inning came in when Scott Van Slyke juggled the base hit, trying to get off a throw. Over to third, drawing the throw, and the ball is waiting for him. So Liriano is nailed trying to steal third on a pitch in the dirt. That's a fine play by A.J. Ellis, not only to block the ball but to come up and hurriedly make an accurate throw. So Turner had the ball. There's A.J.'s block. Here comes Liriano, and there's the ball. Come slide into it. Not come fly with me, come slide with me. So we have 2 down. 2-2 the count to Amarista. And now Bud Black coming out. Dave Roberts on the phone. It looked like he was out for me to use, so we'll see if it's worth a discussion. Maybe it looked differently down in the dugout. They're checking with Dave Roberts. Roberts pulls the bill of his cap. And I think Dave gets the message. No, he's going to review it. Well, one thing, there was some fancy footwork by Liriano. I mean, the ball is there, waiting, making you slide, but the foot comes up. So we'll have to wait and see. Certainly looked like he was an easy out. He kind of pulled that right foot back and then stabbed the bag with it. Big play at third base last night. When it went against the Padres, it was the end of the game. Now let's see. Out. So Bud Black is 0 for 2, appealing close plays at third base. Last night it ended the game. Tonight it takes off a runner, and the Padres are still leading 4-1. Two and 2 to Alexi Amarista. Brian Wilson walking on the grass, looked like he was heading for the Dodger dugout. 3-2 the count. Will Venable waiting on deck. And off the plate, ball 4. So Amarista, who is not only a very good shortstop and a good hitter, but he is an absolute pest on the base paths, and he is now on base for the 4th time. He stole 3rd in the 4th inning. 6th time this year that he has stolen 3rd. So now here's Will Venable batting for Boyer. And that's ball 1. Will Venable, a graduate of Princeton University. His dad, Max, played for about 15 years in the big leagues. Will with 5 home runs, 25 runs batted in. Wilson has to really keep an eye on Amarista. Amarista with a stolen base tonight. Has stolen 10 out of 11. One ball, no strikes. So Wilson trying to get out of the inning. 4-1 San Diego. One ball, one strike. And that's ball 2. 2-1. Four runs, 11 hits. 1 run, 4 hits for the Dodgers. And ball 3. We mentioned earlier that Amarista stole a base. He stole 3rd in the 4th inning. Billy Hamilton of the Reds has stolen 3rd 13 times this year. And D. Gordon has stolen 3rd 9 times. Three and 1. He goes on exchange for a strike, and the throw on a bounce gets away. Amarista on his way to 3rd, and he's in there. Boy, he is a pest. There's no 2 ways about it. So Amarista picks up another stolen base. He's now stolen 11 out of 12. Arabarena unable to block the ball on a hop. And an error charge to A.J. Ellis. So Amarista busy as usual. For Ellis charged with an error, that would be the 3rd Dodger error. Amarista with 2 stolen bases. And now a 3-2 count to Venable with Solarte on deck. 8th inning, 2 out. 4-1 Padres. Foul back. I don't know if Amarista has ever stolen home, but he certainly doesn't figure to try to steal home with a left-hand hitter at the plate. Three and 2. And that's lifted back ashort. Arrubarena goes out. Coming in is Van Slyke. And Scotty makes the catch. So with all of it, a double and a walk. They have 1 runner cut down at 3rd. They leave another at 3rd. For more details, download today on your console and mobile device. RBI Baseball is back. D. Gordon right there at home plate, and Dale Thayer all set to pitch. And then suddenly Gordon backed out, and we're waiting now as Thayer comes in. He's a local boy from Fountain Valley, lives in Huntington Beach, and went to school at Cal State Chico. Went to Edison High School before moving on to Chico State. And that's going to be in right center for a base hit. Up with it is Liriano. And with the Dodgers down by 3, Gordon will hold on. And now Andre Ethier, who was one of the 2 left-hand batters available, the other being Carl Crawford, they will bring up Ethier. For the Dodgers, 14 in a row retired until Gordon got the base hit. The last Dodger hit was Gonzalez double way back in the 3rd inning, and we're in the bottom of the 8th. Dodgers have 5 hits and 1 run. Gordon bluffs, and the pitch a strike. Dale Thayer is 3-3 with a good ERA of 2. He has a great walk and strikeout ratio, 13 walks, 51 strikeouts. That's a strike. So Ethier off the bench in a hole, 0-2. Andre Ethier hitting .244 and coming off the bench 5 for 17 and 7 runs batted in. And there goes Gordon on a low pitch out. The throw down, not in time. That low pitch out was a strike on the outside corner. So Ethier had 3 pitches, and down he goes as Gordon steals second. Good throw, great pitch. Backhanded, coming up throwing his Grandal, not able to get Gordon, but it was strike 3 at the plate. So 1 out in the 8th inning.
Center fielder number 66.
Now Yasiel Puig. Both bullpens are busy. The Dodgers have Carlos Frias and Jamie Wright, and the Padres have Kevin Quackenbush and Frank Garces, the kid who made his debut last night. So here's Puig. He is lined into a double play, singled and grounded out. Scored the only Dodger run in the 3rd inning. Right. See what Puig has done against Thayer. He is 2 for 4 with a home run against the right-hander. Thayer pitched the 7th inning last night, and Puig had an infield single against him. Punched on the ground to the right side. 2 down. And on the play, Gordon goes to 3rd.
Dodgers first baseman number 23, Adrian Gonzalez.
So the Dodgers have Adrian Gonzalez, who was the last man to get to 3rd in the 3rd inning. Adrian, 83 RBIs. Gordon is at 3rd, 2 out, and the Padres lead 4-1. They've led all the way, 3-0, 3-1, 4-1. Dodgers have run into the Padre bullpen, and that always spells trouble. Matt Kemp on deck. One and one. Gonzalez 1 for 5 in the past. Last night when Thayer came in and pitched the 7th inning, Gonzalez hit into a force play against Thayer. Ball 2, 2-1. Four runs, 11 hits, 1 error for the Padres. 1 run, 5 hits, 3 errors for the Dodgers. The errors did not change the score, did not have an influence in the score, unless you want to say when you have an error that allows the offensive team to send up that extra hitter. In the second inning, Padres had 3 runs on 3 hits and 2 walks. And in the fourth inning, they had 2 singles and a sac fly for the other run. 2-2. Matt Kemp on deck is 0 for 5 against Thayer. And then Matt faced him last night. Struck out. So he's 0 for 6 against Dale Thayer. So Gordon, who single, stole second, now at third. 3-2 to Adrian Gonzalez. Check swing. They check. No swing. Ball 4. So wouldn't you know, Matt Kemp representing the tying run and looking for his first hit against Dale Thayer. Matt tonight grounded to short, had the fly ball that scored Puig in the third inning, and then last time up popped up. So 0 for 6 against Thayer, and he has struck out 4 of 6 times against him. So he's certainly not his favorite pitcher. Gordon at third, Gonzalez at first. 4-1 San Diego, and Kemp the possible tying run. Ball 1. A little bit of a different alignment on the left side of the infield. They give him all of straight up the middle. I mean, Amarista could almost shake hands with Solarte. That's about as close as you'll see a shortstop to a third baseman. And a slicing foul ball down the line, and it will drop untouched. So Jerko, Liriano, Gobert all racing, trying to get under it. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. It was amazing. If you were with us at the very start of the game, we were talking about how the Dodgers wear out Stultz. Barney was hitting 500, Puig 625, Van Slyke 600, Kemp 417, Turner 444. Well, here we are in the 8th inning, and that club has 1 run. And ball 2. Thayer will be 34 in the middle of December. Came up with the Rays, then played briefly with the Mets, came to the Padres 2012. 2-1. And ball 3. For the Dodgers, outside of the second inning and maybe the third, this is their closest look to the game with Van Slyke on deck. And remember, Carl Crawford is still available to pinch hit. 3-1. And a fly ball to center. It's playable. Right there is Almonte. And the Dodgers' closest look is shut down. No runs, a hit, 2 left. And at the end of 8, 4-1 San Diego. We have reached the ninth inning. Padres have been leading all the way. The Dodgers had their one look at the game so far. That was the eighth inning. And now to the ninth. Carlos Frias will come in. He'll be the fourth Dodger pitcher. Hernandez followed by Baez, followed by Wilson, and now young Carlos in his sixth game. An ERA of 6, 9 innings, and he's allowed some runs. And we'll see how the right-hander goes against Solarte, Almonte, and Smith. Solarte is the only Padre without a hit, but he does have a scoring fly ball. So 4 runs, 11 hits, and 1 error for San Diego. 1 run, 5 hits, and 3 errors for the Dodgers. But again, as we said, the Dodger errors outside of allowing extra men to come to the plate have not really figured in the scoring. Solarte came up in the 4th inning and had a fly ball to center field deep enough to score Reimer Liriano from third base. Solarte batting .277 and a strike, 0-1. Tomorrow night, Clayton Kershaw and Tyson Ross. Clayton so disappointed after a great effort last time. Try to recoup against the Padres.
Center fielder, number 16.
Kershaw 14-3. Remember, he was 14-2. He had an 11-game winning streak, and it did not pass, although it was a tremendous effort. Though we have 1 away. Clayton that night, remember when All the Way struck out 11, and Milwaukee still hung on to beat the Dodgers 3-2. Well, here's Almonte. 1 for 4, single to short last time up. And line to right, Kemp moving to his left, picks it off. 2 down, top of the 9th inning, and the batter Seth Smith, the left-hand hitting left fielder. Seth is 2 for 4, single to left and single to center. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 9th inning, down by 3, they have Van Slyke, Turner, and Arrubarena. And you know that somewhere in the mix you figure to see Carl Crawford. There's activity in the San Diego bullpen. Benoit with a sore shoulder, and Kevin Quackenbush is up, and Kevin will be asked to close the game. Oh, 0-2 the count to Seth Smith. There are only 7 saves coming out of the Padre bullpen. Benoit had all 7 since Houston Street left. So Quackenbush will be asked to do something that he has not done this year. Pick up a save. 1-2 to Seth Smith. Bad swing, fooled on the pitch. Down goes Seth. Strikes out a second time. Still goes 2 for 5. And we go to the bottom of the 9th inning. 4-1 San Diego. Bud Black. First of all, Abraham Almonte goes from center field to left field. Seth Smith comes out of the game. Cameron Maybin, having fulfilled a 25-game suspension, is now in center field. And Kevin Quackenbush will be the new pitcher. So Maybin would bat ninth. Quackenbush would bat in Seth Smith's spot. And into the bottom of the ninth inning we go. So Quackenbush asked to get a save. He is 2-2. Good ERA, 2.3. His walk to strikeout ratio almost 3-1 for Quackenbush. So Van Slyke, single to left, grounded to short, line to short. So he's 1 for 3. Frias, who pitched for the Dodgers in ninth inning, made 8 pitches. And here we go. Ground ball into left center for a base hit. Almonte up with it, gets it back in. So Van Slyke singles, his second hit of the night. He is 2 for 4. And the batter now, Justin Turner. Psychologically, there's a big difference between pitching the 8th inning, pitching the 7th inning, and asked to pitch the 9th. Quackenbush had 45 minor league saves. He had 27 saves 2 years ago in single A. But I guess there's nothing quite like being asked to close a major league game. Kevin is 25. He'll be 26 in November. 0-1 to Turner. Justin single, grounded to short, and walked. Kevin Quackenbush, the 4th Padre pitcher, trying to shut down the Dodgers. Van Slyke at first, nobody out. Quackenbush is 6'3" and 210. Working on Justin Turner. Last year, Quackenbush struck out almost 40% of right-handed hitters, and he held left-hand hitters to a 200 batting average. But the problem was he averaged about 5 walks per 9 innings. That was all done at AAA. Turner hitting .310. Carl Crawford is out on deck. Justin with 3 home runs, 27 runs batted in. There's Crawford. Certainly figured to see him here in the 9th inning. No balls, 2 strikes. Fastball fouled away. Quackenbush, when he was in high school, was the talk of Tampa. He pitched a couple of no-hitters in high school. Even though he grew up in Tampa, he was a Yankees fan because his parents were from New York. The Yankees trained in Tampa. End of that story. 0-2. Still 0-2. Quackenbush fastball anywhere from 87 to 94. He has a pretty good loopy curveball and a change. Oh, 0-2. And a drive to center. Maybin is there. Cameron makes the catch. So 1 pressures out here in the 9th inning. To repeat, the Giants beat the Cubs 8-3. For all we know, the Giants can come back, and that suspended game Remember, they stopped the game in the 5th inning last night with the Cubs leading 2-0. So they still have to finish that game before it's reflected in the standings, and then the regularly scheduled game tomorrow night. Well, here's Carl Crawford, who has really been tearing it up. Usually very aggressive early in the count, and ball 1. For Crawford, to show you what he's been doing in the last 2 weeks, hitting .420 with a home run, 6 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and 8 multi-hit games. He did not start tonight with the left-hander Eric Stoltz on the mound. The numbers also dictated it, although actually Crawford is hitting better against left-handers, .275, than right-handers, .266. Power, however, 4 of his home runs against right-handers. One and 2 the count. It was last night in the 7th inning against Alex Torres, and Crawford reached the seats in right field. Wasn't just enough, and the Dodgers went on to win the game 8-6. But that was last night. It's 4-1 Padres tonight. 1 out, bottom of the 9th. One ball and 2 strikes. 2-2. Waiting on deck, A.J. Ellis. Hitters say they don't really get a good look at Quackenbush's fastball. Has a little deception with a high 3/4 delivery. They don't see the ball that well, and he'd right in on your hands. Still 2-2. Quackenbush 6'3", 210. At first, Scott Van Slyke held on by Jake Gobert. 1 out. And a bouncer down to Jerko. The feed to Amarista. The bouncer is late. No play there. So the Dodgers barely alive, but they still are. 2 down in the 9th inning. And the batter is A.J. Ellis.
A.J. Ellis.
So if you want to go with today's standings, if the Dodgers lose tonight, they will be 3.5 games in front of the Giants. However, that could change if the Giants either win or lose in that makeup last half of last night's game that's going to be played tomorrow. Oh, and 1. 1 ball and 1 strike. And off the foot of Quackenbush, picked up by Grandal to throw him out. There's a play for you. As simple as 1, 2, 3 if you're scoring. So Ellis, a comebacker, and Grandal throws him out. Dodgers get a base hit in the 9th and nothing else as the Padres win game 2 and game 3 tomorrow night. Clayton Kershaw and Tyson Ross. Player of the game, you'd have to give it to the little shortstop, Alexei Amarista, who plays a big game. Amarista was on base 4 times, stole 2 bases, and was active all over the field with a walk, 2 singles. He also reached on an error. So Alexei Amarista shaking up the Padres, not to mention what he did to the Dodgers. He also stole third base tonight, and the Padres win it 4-1. Tomorrow night, Kershaw and Tyson. We'll talk to you then. Till then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.